guest speaker today in this meeting. That is School Supervisor Mr. Dale Peters, School Supervisor 3. As you know, the school supervisors are the ones that our principals and our teachers usually report to and interface with on a daily basis. And they are here today. He is here today, a very supportive member of the Port District Office. So I want to give you a clap, Mr. Peters, for really incorporating us in a lot of your activities and meeting with us, and even the invitation to the principal conference. That has been amazing. First, you're hearing that the Minister of Education is asking for us to have more schools in more PTAs in schools, and I think we would not have been so successful in the growth that we have had from even last year to now, and continuing without the support of the district office. So I do want to extend that, let you know how grateful we are for the partnership and really addressing some of our issues. So Mr. Peters is here today to discuss or present to us the parents' role in the new National School Code of Conduct. Mr. Peters, you need me to share the slide, or are you sharing it from your machine?
I will share from my
You're sharing. Okay, great. So he's here with us today to really give us some points that we as parents, as PTA members, need to know as it relates to the new National School Code of Conduct. Last general meeting, we had one of our officers who really went into some of the legalities of it. Mr. Peters is going to go into it a little further for us. And we would have shared this National School Code of Conduct a few weeks ago and again last week. So I'm hoping that members would have had the opportunity to read it, particularly from page 49, where it speaks on parental responsibilities, so that we can ask our beloved Mr. Peters any questions at the end of his presentation, right? So Mr. Peters, I now hand over to you. And again, thank you very much.
All right. Just give me 1 second to share my screen.
No problem.
All right. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, parents and PTA leaders. Thank you, Ms. Thomas, for the invite. As said before, I'm Dale Peters. I serve as District School Supervisor, and I currently oversee, along with my colleagues, 27 secondary schools and 72 primary schools within the Port Environs Educational District. So today I bring you experience from the field, from real schools and real situations. Let me begin with a short story. I visited a school recently. A student was constantly in trouble, disruptive, defiant, always in conflict. As a school, we tried everything. Nothing worked. And then we met the parent, and everything changed. At home, there were no rules, no routine, no structure. The child was not necessarily difficult. The child was consistent, but consistent with the only thing that he knew. And that is why this conversation this evening matters. The National Schools Code of Conduct promotes shared responsibility. Schools and parents must work together. Parents have the greatest influence on the behavior of their children. What happens at home shows up at school, and now what happens at school showing up at home. So we are also seeing right arising or resurgent in some issues within the district. Extreme violence on the road, cyberbullying, conflict in many ways. And the PTA and parents are critical because they are now the bridge between what happens at home and what happens in the school. Let me be clear.
Winter stuff. Look, my
Somebody needs to mute their mics. So let me be clear.
The gas.
What do you mean?
Schools,
With myself.
whether in Port of Spain, Trinidad, or the world, cannot raise children alone. And let me repeat that again. Schools cannot raise children alone. When parents reinforce school expectations, the behavior improves. When the messages conflict, that is when this child becomes confused. And that confusion leads to resistance. So alignment between the rules at home and the rules at school matters. Not only that, we must also rethink discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It is support, it is teaching, it is guidance, and now we use restorative approaches within the schools in lieu of suspension and extended suspension. We help the students now understand the harm that was caused. We fix the mistake, and then we move forward. Parents shape how the children respond. Now, let's look at the code. The National Schools Code of Conduct is a guide. I'll repeat that as well. It is a guide. It sets clear expectations. It does not replace the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, nor the circular or policy of the Ministry of Education, right? And as well, it addresses, well, this revised edition not just addresses digital behavior. Because behavior, and why digital behavior? Because the behavior of the students continue way beyond the classroom. The code is built on core values such as respect, responsibility, integrity, courtesy, productivity. However, these must begin at home because the children are watching what we all do. The focus of the code of conduct is the child, and the focus is always the child, their well-being, their dignity. And the code also speaks to discipline, which must never harm the child. It must guide, it must support. And the parents and the various PTA bodies also help in building that trust. So in terms of the parent responsibility, for parents' responsibility, I'll repeat again, is to help us as the schools guide the student, supporting them, and help build trust amongst the parents, the teachers, and the school admin. Let me focus now a little bit on parents specifically and parental influence. The research is clear. Parents shape behavior. They shape the attitudes, and they shape attitude to authority. When parenting is consistent, the code is saying the children would improve. When parents work with schools, the rules of the school make sense. And this consistency is critical. The same rules at home, we want the same rules at schools. The same rules at home, we want the same expectations at school. If not, confusion in the child occurs, and the children tend to resist structures that are put in place. Parental involvement, and I can't underscore it enough. Parental involvement improves results. Right? The code is saying academic success, behavior, accountability. With the PTA support, with this partnership, we would realize those 3 areas, which are, again, academic success, behavior, and accountability. Now, let's look briefly at some parent responsibilities. According to the National Schools Code of Conduct, first and foremost, attendance. The children must be at school every day. I would try to avoid the children staying home because obviously they'll miss the material being taught. Secondly, would be readiness. We are asking parents to ensure that the child ready for school. Uniform in order, they have the materials necessary for working, and the attitude as well, their work ethic. They come with the work ethic, prepared to work and understand that their purpose in school is to learn. We are asking, according to the School's Code of Conduct, parent responsibilities, we're asking parents to build routine at home. Building those routines, time for homework, time to get up, the time to do chores, and etc. That structure at home builds the discipline, and that discipline would then be mirrored in the school when they attend. Apart from the discipline and the readiness and the structure at home, parents must model behavior. Remember, the children are watching all of us, parents, teachers. So we want everyone to model the behavior that they want the children to show. Respect, responsibility. And we say to parents, talk with your children. We too, as educators, will also talk with them and guide them. And most importantly, parents, work with the schools that your child is attending or enrolled in. Now, it would be remiss of me not to talk about the digital behavior of students, because many conflicts that arise in the school is as a result of the child's behavior online. And the National Schools Code of Conduct is highlighting that parents must also monitor devices. As schools and educators, there are some legal issues that must be addressed if we go into a child's personal device. But parents, the child in your house, your money spent for the device, we are asking monitor device. Know what the children are doing online. The cyber issues, the cyber bullying, it doesn't stay online. Eventually, it enters the school. And that is when the violence erupts. So we want to have open conversations with the children regarding what they're doing online, who are they talking to online, how long they're staying online. And to treat with that, open conversations are the key. Moving forward, I should rather say moving forward together. Right? We need that collective effort. Discipline must now be seen as a shared responsibility between schools, parents, and the community. We all have a part to play, or we all have a role with regard to school discipline or the discipline of the child. And when we work together, trust me, we will succeed. We are facing serious challenges in the schools. Give me 1 second. Yeah. All right. As I was saying, we are facing serious challenges within the schools. Violence, and we're talking extreme violence, because and the violence now is on the road. Previously, we had fights at schools, but that is being slowly reduced. And we're seeing now extreme violence on the public road. Substance abuse, and not marijuana, but vaping. And digital risk, inappropriate digital content on the internet. And with the National Schools of Code of Conduct, we are saying that we must respond together. Parents, the school, and the wider community. So let me end here by saying this. The National Schools Code of Conduct is about building better citizens, getting our children, our students, to be responsible, respectful, and strong. So I ask you, PTA body, and the parents, and by extension, the wider community, let us all be present. Let us all be engaged in the activities of our students and our children, and let us work together as schools, parents, and the community. Because, simply put, when we work together, the children win. Thank you, and I would open the floor now for any questions the persons on the call may have.
Mr. Peters?
Mr. Peters,
Yeah.
question. How has the transition been from the change of administration in terms of the perspective or the viewpoint of challenges faced by our students? So before we had priority schools or schools of focus, what was the term used before, if you don't mind me asking? Just for clarity. Madam President, you remember the term used before?
What determines a school
Schools
being
are focused, they're not
Schools of
priority
focus,
schools.
and it is now termed. What is in the present term?
The present term schools of priority. So you
Right,
want to
good.
know what?
So what I'm asking you is has there been any real change? It's not to put you in any compromising position. The perspective of the new minister in terms of his view about education, is it the same, or are we transitioning into something totally new?
All right. The schools of priority, there are many factors that determine the schools of priority. And I want to indicate that a school of priority is not a school with where the children get failing grades totally. It's a school where we need to pay more attention to because of a particular area. It might be infrastructure, it might be student behavior, it might be teacher training, it might be parental involvement. So there are a number of factors that influence being a school of priority. In terms of the change, yes, since we came into since between the change in administration, this PTA body, the regional PTA, would have transitioned between two administration, but we remain the same. Both the PTA, the PTA regional PTA body persons, as well as myself and the school supervisors. And what we saw was a reduction in violent activities within the school. Two, we also seeing more parental involvement in the schools. Several schools initiated a PTA, started a PTA, or revitalized the PTA. And because of that, we are supervisors getting the information from either the PTA body itself or through the school via the principal. So we are now able to nip a lot of things in the bud early before it becomes a festering sore. So our response time to critical issues improve, but it only improve because the PTA body improve as well. And the PTA body, because of the vibrant nature of it and the activities being rolled out, we're able to treat with it. And that is one of the hallmarks of our district and something that we could boast about. Good. So that is to answer your question. In terms of change, yes. Good. However, we are seeing a resurgence of the violence on the street. If I give you general statistics, we were suspending children from almost every secondary school almost every week. At this point in time, there are schools that have not suspended any child for the year. And if I were to speak about tranquility, because it was in the media a lot in a negative way, and I also want to say that while the behavior of a few children, we don't support it, the school itself reduced the number of suspensions, and there's a drastic reduction in the number of children being suspended and number of violent acts being created. As if we compare this year with about 2 or 3 years ago, so those are some of the changes. We are not out of the woods yet. There are still some issues that we need to grapple with. Good. But once we keep that parental involvement up, we have more schools coming on board with legitimate PTA units, we will see an improvement. And I'll just reiterate, because the schools, the PTA is active, we are supervisors now getting the information in such a timely manner. We could go in very early and really do some conflict resolution training or whatever we need to do to assist in having the school run effectively. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Miss Macy. Miss Macy is the president of St. Rose's Girls RC School PTA. Go ahead, Miss St. Rose's, ask a question.
Hi,
And who would have just spoken was the president of St. Ursula's and also second vice president of the region. Go ahead, St. Rose's.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Mr. Peters, I just wanted to find out if there are any programs being rolled out from the district or the ministry with respect to students who are having challenges. You mentioned like vaping, and all these sorts of things. Are there any programs being rolled out? Because sometimes parents are struggling to be able to maintain the ideal for their students, but then when the students come out of school, they are facing different things there, peer pressure and all of that. So is it that you all are looking at having programs rolled out in the schools where they could be able, especially if a teacher notices a child who would have probably come in at Form 1 level, very, very bright, intelligent, looking forward to move forward. But then by the time they hit Form 2 or Form 3, they get caught up in friends, peers, doing the wrong thing. What is anything looking at being done? Because especially at the secondary school level, you find a lot of these issues taking place.
Yeah, and I like the question you asked because it raises an important problem in our society and within Trinidad and Tobago. Not in vaping, or substance abuse. The fact that there are no institutions outside of Rebirth House for us to admit a child who is addicted to drugs. There are no areas for teenagers. We have areas for adults. So what is happening now is that children who are into substance abuse, they are now lumped with the adults in whatever institution. And that is one of the ways I think we should advocate for institutions or areas, because for some of these children, we need to take them out of the school environment temporarily so that we can treat with the substance abuse effectively. But as it is now, there's no institution. So we're faced with the dilemma now to treat the child while they're actively going to school. Good? And all the withdrawal symptoms and all of that playing out in the school. So we have SSSD. They have their own suite of activities to treat and counsel the students. We try to get guidance officers and social workers in every school. If not, we advise principals to do the referrals. And if they don't have a resident guidance officer, we will try to get one who's nearby to intervene, because some of them are zoned. As our district, as supervisors, we have met with the police service within the Port of Spain area. That is from the officers who have jurisdiction from Lavantil all the way to Diego Martin, right? And all the units in between, right? So we have a reporting structure, because apart from the child, we also want to go to the source. And that's where the police come in now. They will now do the necessary investigation and go to the source of it and see if we can cut the source off. Right? Outside of that, we have our own counseling and guidance and pastoral care that we would give us school supervisors and principals to the child. So those are just two of the main areas. We also have connected to something called Hearts and Minds in the Lavantil area. That is run as an excellent program run by the community police in the area, where the children, whether they do deviant behavior, as opposed to staying at home, they can go there, whether they're suspended for vaping or otherwise. And we can send work there and we can take them home to do. They're actively engaged. Because sometimes to some children, suspending them or sending them home is a little worse. They're going into a worse situation. Good? So those are three of the main areas, but we are open to partnerships in other areas. It is three, but it is not enough. It is not enough. We're just dealing with a drop in the bucket right now. We need to do some whole school programs and some district-wide programs in order to address that really meaningfully. So to answer your question, yes, we started, but there's a long road ahead of us where that is concerned. And it's not just the children using the vaping or the vaping products. They're selling the products as well, because it's easy to get it, right? And there are no regulations really being enforced I should say enforced. There are regulations, but to the extent of whether they're being enforced in terms of getting the children, reducing access, to the children, so they can't walk into a vape store and buy, because there's a vaping shop on our Peter Avenue, and Woodbrook Secondary is nearby, St. Ursula's is nearby, so it's easily accessible. All right. So we need to, one, I'm saying advocate as well. In spite of what we're doing now, we need to advocate for facilities for children from SEA, Standard 5, Standard 4, all the way up to their teenage, somewhere where we could house them safely, male and female, safely, where we could treat substance abuse issues. Because as I said, that is the main issue right now. There's nowhere to put them. And when we mix them with the adults, well, some of them come back even worse than they went in. So that is an area that we could look at. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that question. 1 second, I'm getting some feedback. Yes, I would say thank you very much for that question, St. Rose's president, and Mr. Peters also for your response. The Port of Spain Region Executive is actually hosting a special session for parents that is scheduled for the 12th of June. That actually through partnership and discussions with the district office, them telling us some of the challenges that they were having. So we have been communicating with various agencies and so forth. I don't have all the details now, but all I know is the date is the 12th of June. So our partnership is important, and I want us, to continue it. So he was able to give that information. We were able to react. And now I'm hearing that we need a facility, where we can house students of substance abuse or who are suffering with substance abuse. And that hits me personally because my father was an addictions counselor after being an addict for years. That this kind of destroyed our family. I mean, his story ended up good. So when I'm hearing now that children are going through those sorts of issues, it's very concerning for us. So thank you very much for sharing that, Mr. Peters. And I would also ask that, I hear you partnering with Hearts and Minds and meeting with other stakeholders within the district. I would also like if we can be included in some of those conversations as well to represent the parents. One of the things that I brought up with Miss Noels when we were at the principal conference is that there are so many people, so many stakeholders in education within our little district, but we all operating in silos. So I would love the opportunity where we can all come together, where it's all the different stakeholders in Port of Spain, and let us kind of put our minds together and address some of these issues that are happening in school. And she was open to it. We've already started some discussions, and we would love to be invited to those forums in addressing those issues. Do we have any other questions? So I take it our parents. I see someone on my mic.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jessica Charles Nicholas. I am Mokorapo East Educational Officer.
For some reason, I'm not hearing well. Go ahead.
Yes. My question is,
can you just identify yourself, please, and school?
Repeat that again?
Identify your school for us.
East Mokorapo Secondary School. Yes. My question is, does the Code of Conduct cover neurodivergent? Because I'm trying to find it, but I'm not really finding it at all. Because autism children as well as ADHD children might how to say it, behave a certain way, and we might misinterpret the behavior. But if we do more how to say it, assessments, we need more assessments of the children to determine if really the behavior is from an educational perspective, meaning mental perspective, or is it just a child misbehaving. That's what I really want to ask. I don't know if I put that across, Kelly.
Yeah, I understand the point you're making. And it also goes to the same thing with substance abuse. We have very few facilities that would treat or provide guidance or do the necessary accurate diagnostic work for children with I don't want to say learning disabilities, but for whatever better term, ADH and the full stream, the autism, what part of the spectrum they're on, etc. In addition to children with disabilities. Good. So again, that is another area where I think we need extensive stakeholder collaboration to treat with, because and it's not just the diagnostic, going into the schools and equipping the schools with the facilities that assist those children. Good. The teachers also need the training to treat with it. The parents also need training as well to deal with it. And in some cases, the stigma that's still there for especially children with disabilities. Good. And I would give you one example. The children with speech, sight, or hearing impediments or disabilities, we now have the laptops that can do speech to text or text to speech. So in terms of a child with autism writing or a child with disability, they don't necessarily need to write an exam, they can speak. They can get an aid as well. So that's an area we have a lot of work to do. The ministry, as far as I know, making efforts to do the diagnostic work at the primary school level and ECC level, ages between 4 to 6. So they're working on that. However, we do have children in the system. So what we want from parents, and this is what you tell the parent body, if they have already the medical stuff, give it to the schools, bring it to the district office. If you as a PTA are aware of children like that and they're not getting the necessary tutoring at school, come and see us as supervisors and let us put something in place, because you're going to have to treat each child individually. Good. There are some schools that have more resources to help those children than some, and that's the reality. There are some schools that are completely outfitted with rooms and everything. So let us treat it as I'm leaving the door wide open for that. Bring those children and the parents to the fore. Let us know who they are and let us see how best we can help them. The Ministry of Education does provide an aid. However, they have not rehired anyone as yet. Good. And that is something for the PTA body to note, because we need those persons. And we need a lot of them, because there are a number of children in our district. If I just take autism alone, there's a whole year group. And unfortunately, we don't have the knowledge training unless we want it ourselves. You're quite right in that some of the behavior is not necessarily that the child is deviant or difficult. There are misunderstanding. Some of it is a cry for help too, but there's a misunderstanding. I've had a child with, I don't know if you're familiar with Tourette's syndrome, where the child would blurt out anything and anything at any time, and they're not in control of it. So unless you train to recognize it, you would swear that that child is being disrespectful. So I take your point, but as I said, that's work in progress, and it's another area I think we could do a lot more advocating for on behalf of those children. And I'm saying we, parents, the schools, and the community on a whole. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so you will hear me on one device and see me on another. Just confirm everyone can hear me still.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
We
I'm
can hear
speaking
you.
to another device because I don't know what's going on with the volume on my laptop. Let me ask a question. My understanding is that specific to children that may have special needs, if a principal is faced with a disciplinary issue, despite what the code of conduct says, the principal is the one that more or less has the final say. Because he would understand, for instance, he would understand that there's a student in his class or in his school that has some sort of um, learning disorder or some sort of ADHD or autism that may cause him to act differently from the other students. If faced with a disciplinary situation with that student, the principal now will assess the situation and has the final say whether or not that child should be disciplined, suspended, or to go through the disciplinary matrix as is stated. So that would, am I correct in understanding it to be like that? The principal at the end of the day has the final say in assessing the situation and making the best call.
Yes, the principal would make a judgment call whether the matter needs to be escalated or whether they could treat it at the school.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's what I wanted to have clarified. Are they
However, yeah, I
go ahead.
would add, we encourage principals, even though they make the decision, to still report it
Yeah,
so that we
okay.
have it on file. Because what happens sometimes is that a child transfers from one school to the next, and the incoming school is not aware that the
Okay.
child may have a learning disorder or learning disability. They don't always move with the files, so to speak,
Okay.
unless
Okay,
we as a
understand.
school supervisors ensure that those files are transferred to the other school. Yeah.
So I can share with the parents because learning disabilities is a challenge that we are having. Students with special needs, rather, is a challenge that we have because we speak to a lot of our welfare officers and our principals, and we know the challenges and we know the constraints within the Ministry of Education and all the other relevant departments. We have partnered with two, just about three different child psychologists that have offered us services. We can't publicize it, of course, because they would just be as overburdened, but we were able to secure 3 free assessments per quarter for students within the Port of Spain district. We have already selected the ones for this quarter. So for persons who are not in the last meeting, that is something that the Port of Spain and Environs region was able to do. We have already have this quarter and the next quarter filled. But if you have any students within your class and the parents are engaging and willing to go through the process to being assessed, as you know, that assessment can usually cost 7,000 to about $10,000. We have partnered with someone that is willing to offer that assistance, and we are formulating a committee with persons from various disciplines. That's actually going to be chaired by our second vice president to try to offer some sort of pathway support and guidance to our parents as best as possible. Any other questions for Mr. Peters?
Madam President, excuse me, we had the hand of Miss Bianca Andrews. It was raised.
Okay, no
I saw she
problem.
took it down, and I'm not too sure if she still wants to ask a question.
Miss Andrews is from what school?
Hi, good afternoon, Madam President. Bianca Andrews from Bethlehem Boys RC, President.
Yes. A newly elected president, a new school.
Yes,
Welcome, welcome. Yes, go ahead.
in newly formed. My question was, I'm listening. We know children come into schools with disabilities, but what I want to know, right? So if a child come in undiagnosed in first year and the teacher recognize that something is wrong, take it to the principal, take it to the parents, and the parents are unwilling to take it further because we have a saying that nothing is wrong with our child. What could be done from then? Do we take it on ourselves to get the child tested without the parents' consent? Or how do we go about that?
No, your role is to report. Under no circumstances you could go and test anybody's child without the parents' consent. That would create some legal and some ethical issues. So don't go down that road at all. Good. We do have social workers attached to the Ministry of Education that could go in the home along with community police and work with the parents towards getting the child diagnosed. We do have persons that can do the diagnosis attached to the Ministry of Education as well. So what I would suggest to you, one, you could advocate for the child through the PTA, because the PTA can come directly to the school supervisor's office. You don't need to go to the principal to raise an issue. You come through the regional executive come to us, and then we now go in with our team and work with the parent. Good. You could also make reports to community police as well. Good. And the principal also must, I should say also, but the principal ought to do a referral to school supervision, student support services, sorry, that this child is in need of a diagnosis, and highlight the fact that the parent is being a bit resistant. You know?
Okay, thank you very
It's something
much.
that we need to handle very carefully.
I understand.
You know, so those are the three ways that you could get it done. And I'll put them in order. The principal first doing the referral, two, you
Yeah.
come to school supervision, either as the PTA body or through the regional PTA, and three, community police. Good?
Okay. I appreciate. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Can we take one more question?
Okay, so the last question, from who is it? St. Rose's
Evelyn
again?
Wilsey, yes,
Yes,
St.
go ahead.
Rose's. Mr. Peters, so this is not related to the school, National School Code of Conduct. It's just by the way, we recently had an event planned in support of the graduating class at St. Rose's, and the day before, the principal sent a message stating that the event had to be cancelled because there's new process and policies in place that wasn't done in terms of reporting to the ministry in order for them to seek permission to have the event. It was going to be, a games day where the girls would be allowed to come out in sections to play games, like the chess and those kind of things, the big games. Subsequent to that, I was just wondering if the PTA is looking at having a fundraiser, because sometimes we do. So at one point we had a Valentine's Day treat box, so we would ask the principal and she would give permission for us to be able to host the fundraiser at the school. So seeing that there has been policy changes on the ministry behalf with respect to schools having fundraisers, does that also apply for PTAs? So for example, if we were saying, well, okay, we wanted to have let's say probably a double sale or a roti sale or something at school, would we as the PTA need to apply to the ministry, or do we need to talk to the principal and then she would have to apply to the ministry based on the new policy with fundraising? I was just wondering about that.
Right. So remember the PTA Parent Teachers Association. So what the PTA is doing is for the school. So what is a fundraiser for the school? The PTA through the principal would make the request to get the necessary approvals. Now, if the PTA body is doing something for the PTA body, meaning you're raising funds and those funds going directly back to the PTA group, you're raising funds to send your members away for training or something like that. Good. Then yes, you would have to do a use of school form to get the approval. Now, the and it depends on how you use the funds. If the funds involve the children and the parents and the school patronizing, then no, you don't really need the approval because it's a school activity. It's still a school activity. It's like if you coming into all-inclusive fed, yeah, you're gonna need to do a use of school and it would go to the ministry. The PTA doesn't come to the ministry for any approvals at all. Everything must go to the principal. So let me just reiterate so that we're clear. The PTA doesn't ask the ministry for approval for anything. You go to the principal. If the money or the fundraising or the money is to be injected back into the school, then the school could go ahead and do it. The principal would make the necessary documentation to get the approvals for that. If it's monies or the funds are being injected back into the PTA body, then the only difference is I use a school form, which the principal would ask you to fill out, and then the principal would then send it to the ministry for approval. Good? Right?
So let me see if I can add.
Whether it's regardless of the funding or how you're using the money, if you have social media influencers, again, the principal now needs to write us to get the approval. Now, what I did with Woodbrook Secondary, there was an evening I went into their PTA meeting, their executive, and I did a whole session on school activities and how to treat the school activities and the necessary approvals that are needed. If you want, at some point in time, you could put me into this session again, and I could go through how to go about getting the approvals for school activities like that, or any other thing from graduations to all-inclusives, and the things that you need to do as a PT in order to ensure that it is done smoothly. So I could do that either at this district level, or I could do it at a school level and come in and deal with your particular event to ensure that you get the approvals. Now, I would also hasten to say the ministry encourages the PTA to come in and do events. So while it might be a little paperwork and bureaucratic, we want the PTA to come in and do events. The more the merrier, and get the children involved, get the parents involved, and everybody. So we want to see you. So any way we can make the process smoother, effectively, feel free to let me know, and I would come in and treat with it. As I said, I could speak to the individual PTA group within the school, or I could do it at the regional, as a regional discussion. All right, there is a ministry handout. Mr. Thomas, if I find it on Monday, I'll send it to you. Regarding holding bazaars, fundraising.
That's memo 1 of 2025.
Yeah, there's
I
a
have
memo.
it. Yeah, I've shared it with the executive already.
All right. So
By the members.
that as an initial guide, but
yeah.
Any questions about it? Feel free to give me a shout. Yeah.
So what I would add to that, members, the PTA, very similar to what Mr. Peters just said, we do not need to apply to the Ministry of Education for approval of anything other than really to use the property, the use of school form, as he is saying. So you can continue to have your fundraising events for your PTA initiatives. Of course, ensure that everything is recorded, because we are putting a lot more emphasis now. And that is the reason why they would have brought out that memo, because they're putting a lot more emphasis now on accountability, transparency, and ensuring that we protect the children while they're in school. Whereas the PTA does not have to go through that same process. You still have to make sure that you're accounting and have the transparency. So you would have heard the first vice president talk earlier about us bringing in internal auditors to make sure that your books. So it's not that because you're the PTA, and I know a lot of principals are doing it, and we love the fact that they're reaching out to us to host an event and just thinks we're going to hand them the money. But it has to be recorded internally, how your events are done, if it's a partnership with the school, whether it's an individual PTA event and you just did a use of school form. but you must make sure that you're accounting for how your money is coming. If you're donating the money back to the school, you must make sure that you have those accounts, records, signed receipts, and so forth. So I just wanted to add to that. I know, Mr. Peters, that several principals have been reaching out, and I know that they're channeling their events to the PTA to try to get away from some of that red tape. But the PTA also has to be responsible in terms of how they handle their funds, because where you do not have to report to the ministry, you have to report to the NPTA. Right?
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so with no other questions, because we had Mr. Peters here over the time that he said he was able to give us today. So we are very grateful to that. I will take up your offer, as I always do, to have you address us on a district level regarding the same PTA events and how they can go about it in terms of making sure that all necessary paperwork and so forth is done. As well as to also pick up on this forum when we might be able to do the framework. I know a new educational framework is being rolled out. So we would love to have you back on when that is finalized to make sure that our PTA members are aware. And I will now ask our second vice president to offer a vote of thanks for your time this evening and your continued participation and collaboration with the Port of Spain Region Executive. Second vice.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Dale Peters, District School Supervisor 3, on behalf of the region, the executive, its members, and every parent represented here by this body, we would like to thank you. Every child as well. Thank you for the time that you've always found through your busy, very busy schedule to treat with us. I see this as our temple, where we commune, where we get together and share. You said something critical. Schools cannot do it alone. Parents cannot do it alone. We, as a body, cannot do it alone. With PTA involvement, we need to change the behavior. We need to ensure success and accountability of all our students and reinforce the respect and respectfulness and responsibility of our students. So again, I'd like to thank you for sharing with us, and again, hope that you are able to come treat with us again. If not, any representative from the district school supervisory's team. Have a great evening. Thank you.